A man trained his courage by committing real murder. In less than 10 days, 3 lives were taken in the remote mountains, just so he could prove he was brave enough for bigger crimes. It sounds like something out of a horror movie, but this is a true story that happened in Shanxi, China, in May 2013. At the scene, the victim's car was abandoned and burned. Inside the charred frame was a severely deformed human body. While police were still grappling with the first case, 2 young women were kidnapped, tortured, and brutally murdered. All traces led back to the same group, and one chilling motive: courage training. So, who were they really? And how did they commit these monstrous crimes? The answers are about to be revealed. But before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss this intense crime investigation journey. Case setting: Shanxi, a historic region in western China, covered in endless mountains and ancient forests. Everything began on the morning of May 13, 2013, when a local villager in Wang Qiang village saw thick black smoke rising from the cliffs while foraging for herbs. It was a car on fire. Worse, the stench of burning flesh filled the air. Suspecting a possible homicide, the villager immediately called the police. About 15 minutes later, authorities arrived and extinguished the fire. But what they found inside made everyone freeze. A human corpse, curled up and scorched, as if it had been burned alive, sat in the driver's seat. The victim was almost unidentifiable. No fingerprints, no facial features. Only a few bones fused to the seat frame remained, a nightmare for any forensic team. In the ashes, police recovered a partially intact VIN, a key detail that would kick off the investigation. Using the vehicle registration system, the car's owner was identified as Wang Qiang, 35, an office worker vacationing with his family in Taoyuan County. His family reported that he had gone missing on the night of May 11th. Transaction records revealed that within 48 hours of his disappearance, over 10,000 RMB had been withdrawn from his bank account at ATMs across Dongshan City. ATM security footage showed 2 young men wearing hats and masks using the victim's bank card. One was tall and thin, the other shorter with broad shoulders. Bit by bit, the image of the killers began to take shape. The crime scene was deep in a mountain crevice. No witnesses, no complete body. A heavy rain the night before had washed away most traces, including tire and shoe prints. All that remained were a burnt metal frame, bone fragments stuck to the seat, and a plastic bottle with gasoline residue. The fingerprints inside were too damaged to be usable. This made the initial phase of investigation extremely difficult. Investigators worked around the clock, analyzing even the smallest traces. The breakthrough came from the car's GPS tracking system. Before being destroyed, it recorded the vehicle's journey from Taoyuan through Dongshan all the way to Yan'an, then looping back. The route didn't follow any logical escape pattern. It felt more like testing police reaction than running from a crime. Investigators began to suspect this wasn't a random robbery murder, but a carefully planned, organized crime. While reviewing camera footage along the car's route, they spotted a key stop, a gas station on the outskirts of Yan'an. The victim's car had stopped there at 3:26 a.m., just hours before it was torched. Though the camera was at a high angle and blurry, it captured one crucial detail. The driver had a slightly tilted right shoulder, limping gait, and kept scanning his surroundings nervously. The passenger repeatedly brushed his hair with his left hand, a distinct and repetitive habit. Investigators froze the footage frame by frame, cross-checking with Shanxi's criminal database using AI-assisted behavior recognition software. Finally, they got a high-confidence match. Guo Lei, born 1991, previously convicted of armed robbery in 2009, released from prison earlier that year. His prison file noted he had a permanently misaligned shoulder due to abuse while incarcerated. The other suspect, who repeatedly brushed his hair, matched the psychological profile of Wang Hui, born 1988. His mental health history showed he habitually used left-hand hair stroking to self-soothe under stress and had previously been sent for psychiatric treatment by his family. To confirm, police dispatched an undercover team to the Chengwang Temple area, near the car burning site. There, a local vendor clearly recalled seeing 2 suspicious men wandering near the mountain crevice on the night of May 12. one tall with a tilted shoulder, the other fidgety, constantly scratching his head and looking anxious. When police matched the time and location, a traffic camera 200 meters away captured footage of the exact two suspects. The breakthrough had arrived. After positively identifying Guo Lei and Wang Hui, the police began monitoring their phone signals and bank transaction histories. From several suspicious calls made on the night of May 22nd, authorities tracked Guo Lei's movement toward a budget motel on the outskirts of Dongshuan. In the early morning of May 23, 2013, a special operations team surrounded the motel where Guo Lei had just checked in. He was arrested while preparing to leave, carrying a backpack with a dagger, phone, bank cards, and a notebook outlining an escape plan. At the same time, police raided Wang Hui's home, located in an old residential area on the city's edge. He did not resist arrest. On the table were signs of a sleepless night, half-smoked cigarettes, ashes scattered everywhere, and a border map with multiple markings. The biggest surprise came after examining Guo Lei's phone. His call logs and messages revealed the name Brother Jia, someone who had been transferring money, coordinating ATM withdrawals, and advising on careful burial. On May 24th, after tracing the phone number and checking ATM surveillance, police arrested the third suspect, Jia Duo, as he was withdrawing cash near Dongshuan railway station, preparing to board a train out of the province. In his bag, police found over 4,500 RMB, a disposable SIM card, and a train ticket to Xinjiang. At the police station, all three suspects initially remained completely silent, avoiding every question. But after 18 hours of continuous psychological pressure, Guo Lei broke first. He confessed the entire plan and each brutal step leading to Wang Qiang's murder. On the night of May 11th, while wandering around Taoyuan County looking for targets, Wang Hui spotted a sedan parked by the roadside. Its interior lights were on, and Wang Qiang was alone inside, using his phone. Wang Hui signaled Guo Lei to approach from behind. They smashed the window with a wooden stick, dragged Wang into the back seat, and tied his limbs with rope they had prepared. In the victim's pocket were his phone, wallet, and a notebook containing his bank card pins. After successfully testing several ATM withdrawals, they drove Wang Qiang, still barely alive, deep into the wilderness of Dongshuan, murdered him there, and burned the car to destroy evidence. They then retreated to a cheap motel, split the stolen money, and believed no one would ever find out. When asked why he committed the crime, Wang Hui calmly replied, "I wanted to train my guts. If you want to do big things, you can't be afraid of blood. You have to be able to kill." After getting away with the first murder, Wang Hui became arrogant. He told his accomplices, "One victim isn't enough to test my courage. We need more. It has to be bloodier." From that moment, the trio began planning their second test. On the night of May 22nd, 2013, they roamed the red light districts of Dongshuan. At a small massage parlor near the train station, they lured two young female workers into their car under the pretense of a late-night meal. Once inside, the doors were locked. The trap was sprung. The women were tied up and blindfolded with duct tape, then transported to a dense forest in Guangxi district. There, throughout the night, the suspects took turns torturing, sexually assaulting, and brutally murdering the victims. One even carved meaningless symbols into their skin with a knife. At dawn on May 24th, following Jia Duo's confession, Taoyuan police searched the area he described. After 6 hours of digging in a remote mountain ravine, they uncovered the two female bodies buried under damp soil and rubble. The scene haunted even veteran officers. The bodies had their heads and legs wrapped in duct tape, showed signs of suffocation, and bore over 30 stab wounds from a sharp object. Evidence indicated this was not a spontaneous killing, but a premeditated, cold-blooded execution. While forensic teams examined the remains, investigators quickly reviewed missing persons cases in the area from May 21 to 24. Only 2 reports matched the time frame and physical descriptions. The first victim was identified as Zhu Quanlan, born 1995 from Yunnan. She was not yet 18, had only worked as a massage technician for 2 months, and lived in a small dorm near Dongshuan's industrial zone. She had called her mother on May 21, "I've saved enough, I'll come home next month." That was the last time anyone heard from her. The second victim was Sheng Dongmei, born 1985, from Chongqing. A single mother, she had a 6-year-old son being raised by his grandmother back in her hometown. According to coworkers, Dongmei always took the night shift to save money, hoping to afford her son's school fees. News of the brutal double murder shocked the public, especially netizens across China's southwest provinces. They demanded justice for the impoverished teenage girl and the kind single mother, calling it a case that shattered faith in humanity. After discovering the bodies in Dongshuan, the Taoyuan team worked with provincial investigators to connect the two cases based on 3 common elements: timing, location, and the excessively cruel methods. Moreover, on Jie Duo's phone, police found encrypted messages sent around midnight on May 22. One of them read, "It's done, buried deep, no one will know." One of the encrypted messages read, "It's done, buried deep, no one will know." The message was sent at exactly 3 a.m., the same time the 2 girls went missing. Simultaneously, the GPS of Wang Hui's scooter, confiscated at his home, logged a route to the edge of Wangxi Forest on the night of May 22nd, then was turned off. The burial site was just 500 meters from that location. In a supplemental confession, Guolei slipped and mentioned, "The girl cried too much. Brother Jia told me to shut her up." When the investigator asked, "Which girl?" he fell silent. But that detail matched forensic findings. Duct tape had been tightly wrapped over Zhu Quanlan's mouth. With all the physical evidence and overlapping confessions, police officially concluded the 2 cases were part of an organized serial killing, driven by the motive of testing one's own capacity for brutality, a form of extreme psychological deviance. After months of investigation, crime scene reconstructions, and compiling hundreds of pieces of evidence, in December 2013, the Hanyang City People's Procuratorate officially charged the suspects with serial murder, shocking the entire Shanxi province. On January 9, 2014, the trial opened at Hanyang Intermediate People's Court, under heavy security. The courtroom was packed with reporters, citizens, and victims' families. A heavy silence filled the air. After presenting a 200-page indictment, the judges declared that the 3 defendants had conspired to kidnap, assault, murder, and dispose of 3 victims, including a teenage girl and a single mother. Wang Hui, the ringleader, was found to have masterminded the crimes, acting with cold-blooded, deviant intent, and was sentenced to death for murder, robbery, and sexual assault. Guolei and Jia Duo, though not initiators, actively participated and directly carried out the killings. With no mitigating circumstances, they were both also sentenced to death. In the courtroom, the families of the victims sobbed uncontrollably, but no one objected. Justice had spoken. The brutality of the case was beyond imagination. But to truly understand how these men could kill without remorse, we must look into their pasts. The mastermind, Wang Hui, born 1988 from a poor village in Yan'an County, Shanxi. Orphaned by his mother at age 7, his alcoholic father frequently beat him. Wang Hui grew up surrounded by violence and neglect, and dropped out of school by 6th grade. According to local clinic records, he showed signs of emotional disorder in adolescence, torturing animals, drawing deformed humans, and engaging in bizarre tests of courage, like sneaking into strangers' homes or stealing to prove his bravery. While in jail, he once said, "I just wanted to see how far I could go without trembling." Guolei, born 1991, was raised in a poor industrial area in northern Hanyang. His family fell apart, his mother disappeared, his father was imprisoned for gambling and fraud. Raised by an elderly grandmother, he was bullied throughout school. He dropped out at 17 and joined petty theft gangs. In 2009, he was arrested for armed robbery and served 4 years. In prison, he was abused by inmates and suffered a permanent shoulder injury. After being released in 2013, he was jobless, surviving by doing odd jobs and selling SIM cards. He often muttered, "Society stepped on me, now I step back." Ji Duo, born 1986, came from the Hebei-Shanxi border region. The only one among them who finished high school, but became addicted to online gambling at 20. He defrauded his parents and girlfriend to pay off debts. Bankrupt and alone, he drifted to Dongshuan, worked construction, and lived hand-to-mouth. Cold and calculating, he was the one who proposed burning the car, splitting the money, and ensuring no traces of blood were left behind. All three grew up in loveless, violent, morally broken environments, leading to a warped view of life and death. No more fear. No more empathy. Only one craving remained: the thrill of dominating others through violence. 3 innocent lives: a young girl under 18, a struggling single mother, and a gentleman on vacation with his family, were taken just so 3 cold-blooded men could test their guts. Months of relentless investigation by police brought the truth to light and justice to the dead. But beyond the case lies a deeper question. When distorted minds meet a numb society, are we breeding people who no longer value human life? Leave a comment below. Do you believe people like Wang Qiang are just products of a broken system? That's the end of this video. If you found the story gripping, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, so we can bring you more haunting, emotional stories. Thank you for watching. See you next time. In 2012, in a remote village in Yunnan Province, China, a series of mysterious disappearances began to occur, disrupting the peaceful atmosphere of this rural area. The perpetrator was identified as a mentally disturbed man. The victims were brutally murdered, their bodies dismembered, and shockingly, some of their meat was even sold in the market, disguised as ostrich meat. He did this simply to satisfy his twisted desires. Due to the horrific nature of the case, this can be considered one of the most terrifying crimes in China's history. So, what are the details of this case? Subscribe to our channel to uncover it with us right now. The crime scene is set in Nanmen Village, Yunnan, China. This place is known for its beautiful natural scenery, surrounded by rolling mountains and crystal-clear streams. But beneath this tranquility, Nanmen Village has become infamous for a horrifying crime that has just been exposed. The villagers had never witnessed such a monstrous crime. On April 25, 2012, Han Yao, a 19-year-old young man from Kunming, mysteriously disappeared on his way to work. Yao left home at around 7 a.m. and began his day as usual. However, by the time he was expected at work, he was nowhere to be found. Since Yao was known to be diligent and always punctual, his unexplained absence without any prior notice was highly unusual. His colleagues tried to contact him, but Yao did not answer. They also called his family, who were equally unable to reach him. By midday, still without any news of Yao, his colleagues, sensing something was wrong, reported his disappearance to the police. As soon as the report was filed, the police launched an investigation. Strangely, no witnesses saw Yao after he left his house. Despite thorough checks, the police were unable to gather any clues about his whereabouts. Yao's parents, worried and desperate, reported the case to various media outlets, seeking help from the public. The fear of losing their only son left them restless. Around the same time, the police discovered that Yao was not the only case. Over the years, several young people had also mysteriously disappeared in the area. In the last 5 years, since 2007, at least 17 people had gone missing in the area, most of them healthy young individuals between 12 and 19 years old. Each disappearance occurred at different times, but the common factor was that none of the victims left any trace, and none had been found after going missing. The villagers began to feel fearful, wondering if a serial killer was on the loose. The unsolved cases led to growing suspicion and fear, especially during nighttime. The authorities faced mounting pressure as the public strongly criticized the police's inability to solve the successive disappearances. Finally, under significant public pressure and the outrage of the victims' families, the police were forced to intensify their investigation. A large-scale search was initiated with the support of higher authorities. For the first time, investigators began to connect clues from individual cases, hoping to piece together the cases. However, they faced a major challenge as the disappearances spanned several years. The local police's previous indifference and lack of urgency meant that much evidence could have been lost. However, after reviewing the locations of the disappearances, the investigation team noticed a rather interesting pattern. Most victims had disappeared within a 700-meter radius of a man named Zhang Yangmin's house. Zhang Yangmin, 57 years old, was a reclusive man living alone in a dilapidated house on the outskirts. He was quiet and appeared frail. This time, Zhang attracted attention because he had a prior murder conviction. Leaving no stone unturned, the police placed Qiang under suspicion. To clarify any doubts and investigate Zhang's connection to the disappearances, the investigation team requested a search warrant from the court. And it wasn't long before the warrant was approved. As soon as investigators approached Zhang's house, they detected a faint, indescribable foul smell in the air. When the police knocked on the door, Zhang refused to open it and locked himself inside. With no cooperation from Zhang, the investigation team was forced to break down the door and enter forcibly. As soon as investigators took their first steps into the house, they began noticing suspicious signs. Rows of jars filled with strange liquids lined the shelves, creating an eerie, cold atmosphere. Alongside them were numerous knives and scissors hanging throughout the house, with the overpowering stench transforming the room into something more like a slaughterhouse than a home. The investigators paid special attention to an old freezer hidden in a corner of the kitchen. The closer they got, the more unbearable the smell became. When they opened it, the team was met with a horrifying sight. One officer even vomited on the spot. Scattered human bones, partially decomposed, and several pieces of dried flesh hanging inside. None of them could believe what they were seeing. The horror didn't stop there. On examining the jars of liquid closely, they realized they contained human eyeballs preserved in alcohol. After these terrifying discoveries, the investigation team immediately sealed off the house and began collecting every piece of evidence for forensic analysis. Continuing their thorough search throughout Zhang's home, they found numerous large vats and jars, each containing human body parts neatly arranged and organized. These were covered in thick layers of salt, resembling ancient food preservation methods to prevent spoilage. The team estimated the total weight of the body parts to be around 180 kilograms, an astonishing amount that highlighted the scale and brutality of this crime. Further searching led the police to find a strange poster in Zhang's bedroom, with something unusual about its material. Upon closer inspection, investigators were stunned to realize the poster was actually a painting on human skin. Testing revealed it was the skin of Chan Tower, a 17-year-old boy who had recently disappeared in the area. In Zhang's backyard, the police discovered numerous arms and legs buried in the ground, likely because his house had run out of space to hide them. By this point, the police were nearly certain that Zhang Yongmin was responsible for the recent disappearances. However, when questioned about the body parts in his home, Zhang coldly replied, "I don't know," showing discomfort and evasiveness. Despite gathering a significant amount of evidence, the complexity and horror of the case made the investigators feel as if they were wandering through a maze. The investigation continued. When they examined food in the kitchen, the police noticed pieces of meat mixed with human hair, partially eaten. It seemed Zhang had been in the middle of a meal when the police arrived. And this was no animal meat. It was human flesh. Zhang had been eating human meat. By now, Zhang's house was surrounded by police, and curious villagers gathered around. From here, an even more shocking revelation surfaced. Zhang had previously brought ostrich meat to the village market, selling it to the locals. Whenever someone asked about the source of the meat, Zhang would simply say it was ostrich without further explanation. Now, the truth was clear. The meat Zhang had sold was actually from his missing victims. Why would a middle-aged man commit such horrific acts? Let's delve into his past to find out. Zhang Yongming was born in 1955 in a remote, rural area of Yunnan Province, China. He was the youngest of 3 brothers, 2 of whom had also served time in prison. His parents used violence as a method of discipline, leaving Zhang isolated and filled with resentment as he grew up. In 1974, when Zhang was 19, he met Lucy at a small village market. Lucy, a girl of the same age, was one of the few villagers who didn't shun Zhang and often interacted with him. She was kind-hearted and sympathetic to Zhang's circumstances, eventually becoming his only close friend. Their relationship initially started as a simple friendship, but Lucy began noticing Zhang's solitary, mysterious demeanor and felt he needed help. She would often invite him to stroll around the village, hoping her presence could ease his loneliness. As a result, Zhang developed special feelings for Lucy, but due to his quiet nature and lack of confidence, he didn't know how to express them. Instead, he nurtured a growing jealousy towards those Lucy interacted with, torn between affection and obsession, becoming increasingly erratic over time. One August night in 1974, Lucy visited Zhang at his home. The two talked through the night, and Lucy eventually fell asleep in the living room. Zhang, caught between feelings of affection and obsession, decided not to wake her up. Instead, he sat silently, watching her sleep, savoring what he felt was the closest he had ever been to someone who truly cared about him. Suddenly, in an unconscious burst and consumed by wild thoughts, Zhang approached Lucy and cut her throat with a knife. Lucy woke up in intense pain, but Zhang continued his actions, completely out of control. Zhang's parents heard the screams and rushed to the living room. When they arrived, they found Lucy lying on the floor with a severe wound on her neck. Zhang's parents intervened, stopping him and calling villagers for help. Fortunately, Lucy survived, but the wound left a deep scar on her neck and lasting trauma. She couldn't understand why Zhang would do such a thing. Was it his desire to possess her that led to this? This incident shocked the entire village. Zhang was arrested and brought to trial on charges of attempted murder. People expected a heavy sentence, but thanks to his family's defense that he suffered from a mental disorder and was acting in a sleepwalking state, the court opted for a lighter sentence. Zhang received 6 months of reformatory labor as part of a psychological rehabilitation program. The court concluded that he had no real intent to kill and that his mental condition could improve through this program. This decision was controversial, and many villagers felt outraged, believing Zhang should have been imprisoned for a longer period. After completing his sentence, Zhang returned to the village. However, his image had become more ghastly and isolated than ever before. The villagers completely shunned him, and the incident with Lucy cast a dark shadow over him, pushing him further into depression. Zhang never saw Lucy again, but the psychological scar from this incident drove him deeper into a criminal path. He began to harbor violent thoughts in his solitude, with no one to talk to or confide in. Dark thoughts gradually consumed his mind, and the monster within him grew stronger. By 1979, Zhang committed another crime. This time, he killed a man from the village in a more brutal and calculated manner. The man was a friend of Zhang's brother. When he visited their home, Zhang conceived the idea of killing him. He waited until the man left, then quietly followed him. In a secluded area, Zhang attacked him with a rock multiple times to the head, killing him on the spot. He then dragged the body about 150 meters from the scene and buried it in a bush. His actions were witnessed by villagers. In 1979, Zhang was sentenced to death for the first time for intentional murder. However, after a short time, thanks to good behavior and compliance in prison, his sentence was reduced to life imprisonment, and he was eventually released in 1997. During his time in rehabilitation, Zhang learned various skills and became better at hiding his actions. Upon his return, he chose to live in solitude, speaking little and avoiding contact with neighbors. With a vacant stare and an eerie calmness, Zhang displayed no signs of being a criminal, and over time, the villagers began to forget his past as a murderer. However, he silently plotted his next crimes, determined that this time, he would leave no survivors to bear witness. At the scene, he refused to answer police questions, but once taken to the station, possibly haunted by his past imprisonment, he quickly admitted to the serial killings. He recounted each murder in detail as if describing a daily routine, astonishing the investigators. Zhang maintained a stoic expression, showing no emotion, fear, or concern about the consequences of his actions. Psychologists were brought in to assess Zhang's mental state, concluding that he suffered from schizophrenia and had antisocial personality disorder. However, they could not determine any clear motive other than Zhang's morbid desire to kill to satisfy his twisted urges. He stated that he didn't target any specific individuals. His victims were merely young people who happened to pass by his house, becoming random targets. These victims had no connection to Zhang, other than being in the wrong place at the wrong time when he felt the urge to kill. Zhang also revealed that after each murder, he felt an odd sense of relief. He hid the victims' bodies in his home, dismembering some to make them easier to conceal. The remaining parts were discarded in remote areas where he believed no one would find them. The flesh he sold to villagers had been stripped of skin, as he sought a new thrill, the sensation of sharing his work. Zhang's emotionless confessions shocked the investigators. Chinese media and citizens were horrified by these revelations. They couldn't believe that a man once sentenced to death had been released, only to commit such horrific crimes. In 2012, Zhang Yongming stood trial. At the hearing, he maintained a cold demeanor, staring blankly at the judges and attendees, showing no remorse or fear of his potential sentence. Zhang's chillingly calm attitude only fueled public outrage. The victims' families demanded the highest penalty, not only for their loss, but also for the monstrous nature of Zhang's crimes. Zhang's case also put immense pressure on the Chinese government. The police and legal system's negligence in not properly supervising a previously sentenced murderer had led to catastrophic consequences. Amid the public's fury, the Chinese government decided to take severe action, not only against Zhang, but also against those responsible for overseeing him. Numerous police officials were dismissed for failing to prevent Zhang's crimes. In his final trial in July 2012, Zhang Yongming was charged with the murder of 17 people and officially sentenced to death. The sentence was widely praised, as many felt that only death could atone for the horrors he had caused. Zhang Yongming's case quickly became one of the most horrifying in Chinese history, a chilling reminder of the dangers posed by killers without clear motives. Although Zhang Yongming was executed, his case remains a cautionary tale about the dangers of serial killers with disturbed minds and the flaws within the legal supervision system. This concludes the video. Thank you for following this thrilling story. If you found this video intriguing, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to not miss any upcoming stories. March 1st, 2013. While the vibrant city of Hong Kong was bathed in the glow of city lights, with the hustle and bustle going on as usual, a mystery was quietly unfolding in the shadows of Tai Kok Tsui neighborhood. The couple, Chao Wingko and Xiao Yuni, suddenly disappeared without leaving any information. Their family and friends were deeply worried when they couldn't reach the couple. They started seeking help from the police. As time passed, questions started to arise. Could this be a targeted kidnapping? Or did they leave of their own accord? But if they left willingly, what could be the reason? The police began their investigation, but from the outset, they encountered countless obstacles, and the case seemed to hit a dead end. Do you think the expertise of the Hong Kong police will help answer the unanswered questions? Join us as we explore every chilling detail in the journey to solve this dramatic case. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any thrilling developments in the story. Hong Kong, a city that never sleeps, shines brightly, and is one of Asia's busiest financial hubs. The skyscrapers reflect sparkling lights on the waters of Victoria Harbor, creating a stunning scene. Tai Kok Tsui, where our story begins, is a wealthy residential area known for its high-end apartments intertwined with old neighborhoods, where affluent and reputable families choose to live. Beneath the modern facade of new buildings, Tai Kok Tsui still retains its ancient charm, with traditional cafes, small craft shops, and narrow alleys rich with the marks of time. It is a perfect blend of old-world beauty and modern development. The couple, Chao Wingko and Xiao Yuni, suddenly disappeared without leaving any information. Mr. Chao Wingko and Mrs. Xiao Yuni were a well-respected couple among Hong Kong's elite. They owned numerous valuable properties in the city and led a comfortable life with passive income from rental properties. After retirement, they enjoyed each day peacefully together, traveling freely and hosting tea gatherings with friends. With two sons, the Chao family was seen as a model of success and happiness. The eldest son, Chao Kai-ying, was a reserved, diligent, and serious man who always cared for the family. The younger son, Chao Kai-liang, was confident and outgoing, often accompanying his parents at family gatherings. As their lives reached the peak of happiness, why did they disappear? Many people, like myself, might wonder about this. At the police station, the two sons appeared visibly worried. They reported that their parents, Mr. Chao Wingko, 65 years old, and Mrs. Xiao Yuni, 62 years old, had mysteriously disappeared after leaving their home 5 days ago. Chao Kai-ying tried to stay calm, saying, "We've tried everything we could. calling, contacting friends, and even searching all the places our parents usually visit. But there's no sign of them. We hope the police can help us find them as soon as possible. The police received the information and noted that the 5 days without contact suggested a high possibility of foul play, so they immediately prepared a search plan. During the interview, Chao Kai-leong provided additional important information. He mentioned that the last time he saw his parents was on March 2nd, when the three of them went to the IFC Mall in Mongkok to eat. During dinner, Mr. Chao Wing-ko and Mrs. Xiao Yueni mentioned that they planned to go to the mainland for 2 days. They reminded Kai-leong of this, but didn't specify the exact location. Afterward, his parents bid him farewell and went shopping for the trip. Since then, he hadn't seen them again. 2 days later, when they hadn't returned, Kai-leong began to feel uneasy. He tried calling them repeatedly, but their phones were turned off, leaving him with no way to reach them. When his brother, Chao Kai-ying, returned home from work, he, too, was unable to reach their parents. Kai-ying suggested that his younger brother call every relative and friend whom their parents might have met in the mainland, hoping someone knew where they were. However, after inquiring with everyone from friends to relatives, no one knew the whereabouts of Mr. Chao Wing-ko and Mrs. Xiao Yueni. The two brothers began to feel increasingly anxious. They decided to thoroughly check their parents' belongings and quickly discovered a strange detail. Their parents' passports and home return permits were still in the drawer. This discovery startled the brothers. Without the home return permits, their parents couldn't have entered the mainland, meaning they had never left Hong Kong, as they claimed. Both brothers called relatives in Shenzhen, a place where their parents owned property and often visited. However, family members there confirmed that they hadn't seen them, which only heightened the brothers' growing worry. By March 7th, after days of worry and no leads, the two brothers decided to visit the Western District Police Station to seek help from the police to locate their parents. The Hong Kong police immediately sprang into action, starting an investigation based on the information provided by Chao Kai-ying and Chao Kai-leong. They recorded the last appearance of Mr. Chao Wing-ko, wearing a dark blue vest, long-sleeve shirt, jeans, and rimless glasses, while Mrs. Xiao Yueni wore a light gray shirt and jeans. Both carried simple crossbody bags. Because Kai-leong reported that his parents intended to travel to the mainland, the police launched a large-scale search at train stations, ferry terminals, and airports. They also monitored the route from the Chao's home to the IFC Mall in Mongkok. Police questioned nearby shops, residents, and passers-by in the area, extracting footage from every camera around, hoping someone had seen or recognized the couple. Meanwhile, Kai-ying and Kai-leong, along with friends, spread out across nearby streets, posting flyers with pictures and information about their parents. On March 9th, Kai-ying created a Facebook page called Missing Parents, where he detailed his parents' physical characteristics and appealed to the public for help. He frequently updated information on the disappearance and possible places his parents could have visited, drawing attention and hoping for assistance from social media users. Kai-leong also accepted interviews from the media to spread information about the disappearance. He spoke about his family's situation, ruling out the possibility of kidnapping, and described their appearance and clothing before they vanished. Nevertheless, the brothers received no valuable information, which only heightened their anxiety. On the police side, they continued a deeper investigation and discovered that the Chaos owned several valuable properties, and the immigration records showed no travel entries or exits. This confirmed that the couple had not left Hong Kong recently. Initially, the police hypothesized that this could be a kidnapping for ransom, but after a week with no ransom calls to family or relatives, the kidnapping theory was quickly dismissed. If the Chaos hadn't traveled or been kidnapped, where could they have gone? Police considered the possibility that the couple had gone hiking, an activity they loved. But one puzzling aspect was their ordinary attire when they disappeared, which didn't resemble hiking clothes. Kai-leong also emphasized a crucial detail. His mother, Xiao Yueni, was very meticulous. If she planned to go far, she would certainly inform her sons of her itinerary in detail. All signs pointed to the likelihood that they met with misfortune. However, all inferences up to this point did not directly lead to the couple's whereabouts. As time passed, news of the disappearance garnered more public attention. News outlets shared the bizarre and frightening story widely. The video interviews with Chow Kai-leong became a hot topic discussion. At this point, some experienced officers watching the news noticed peculiar expressions on Kai-leong's face. Something in his eyes and demeanor struck them as strange. Here are a few valuable observations. First observation: subtle glance and tension when mentioning his parents leaving home. When asked about the last day he saw his parents and their intended destination, he briefly glanced to the left and looked uneasy. Kai-leong's eyes showed tension when recalling this detail, as if afraid something might be revealed. A quick glance is a typical sign of stress and avoidance, usually seen when someone is hiding important information. Kai-leong's clear anxiety led the police to suspect he knew more than he was saying about his parents' disappearance. Second observation: hesitation and change in expression when mentioning the timeline. When police probed further about the last time he saw his parents and the schedule afterward, Kai-leong's expression subtly changed. He blinked frequently and hesitated, trying to respond calmly, but taking extra time to organize his words. These are signs of tension, especially when someone is trying to recall or assemble a fabricated story. This inconsistency and stress led police to suspect that Kai-leong might be hiding or fabricating something. Third observation: avoiding eye contact and change in tone when discussing his parents' assets. When the police asked about Mr. and Mrs. Chow's assets and whether anyone else knew about them, Kai-leong immediately avoided eye contact. He looked down at the table, his voice grew softer and stilted, as if eager to change the topic quickly. This suggested guilt or anxiety, especially when discussing a sensitive topic like assets. The police realized that the assets could be a possible motive behind the Chow's disappearance. In reality, the Hong Kong police had long suspected Kai-leong, and observing his behavioral cues only reinforced these suspicions. When reviewing the cameras at IFC Mall, where Chow Kai-leong claimed to have last seen his parents, the police realized there was no footage of the three of them throughout the day. Investigators began to think Kai-leong may have orchestrated everything. If no one had seen Mr. and Mrs. Chow, and there was no sign they had left Hong Kong, it was likely he fabricated a story to cover something far more sinister. The police immediately summoned Kai-leong for further questioning. While waiting for the officers to enter the room, he fixated on his phone. At that moment, Kai-leong sent an unexpected message to the group chat, HK Tekken. "I can't take it anymore. All they want is for me to become what they expect." A friend in the group chat replied, thinking he was venting frustration toward his parents. But Kai-leong continued with a chilling confession. "They've always controlled my life, making me live like a prisoner. I've freed myself from them." When group members started feeling something unusual, Kai-leong continued, "That day, I invited them to the new apartment to prepare everything. When they walked in, I killed them." His messages continued, describing the horrifying scene in the apartment. "I attacked my father from behind. When he fell, all my tension disappeared. No more control, no more obstacles. For me, everything is over now. I'm going to jail. Goodbye, everyone." Kai-leong's confession left the group chat in stunned silence. One friend, trembling, called the police, unable to believe this was true. Meanwhile, Kai-leong's last chilling message appeared. "My parents are in the past now. This is true, not a joke. I just want to be reborn, free from all shackles." Right after sending the messages, Kai-leong confessed everything to the police, also revealing his accomplice and the location where he hid his parents' bodies. When Kai-leong's profile was reviewed, a bleak picture of his childhood and life gradually emerged, helping to explain the motive behind this gruesome crime. Chow Kai-leong, born on June 7, 1983, in Hong Kong, according to friends, seemed to have lived in his own world since he was young. He had a lonely childhood, molded by his parents' strict expectations. They always expected him to become a perfect person, to inherit their immense fortune. In elementary school, Chow was forced to learn piano as his parents wished. Even though he disliked it, they never cared about his feelings. They only saw what they wanted, setting strict standards that fueled resentment within Chow. By middle school, Chow became isolated, unable to integrate with his peers. His academic performance declined due to emotional instability, and his introversion grew as he failed the Hong Kong Certificate of Education examination. For a family that valued honor, this was an unforgivable disgrace. His parents decided to send Qiao to study in Australia, hoping to reform him. But it was there that he endured the greatest psychological traumas. During his time in Australia, Qiao faced discrimination and bullying, even being beaten by groups of young men. Each time he was insulted, he felt alone and humiliated, unable to confide in anyone. When he returned to Hong Kong in 2003, Qiao had become a completely different person. He shared neither feelings nor emotions with anyone, including old friends. Qiao lived reclusively, his heart full of resentment, especially towards his parents. He sought solace through social media, where he happened to meet and become close friends with Tse Chin Kei. The investigation also revealed that Tse Chin Kei, Qiao's accomplice, had an equally complex and dark past. Tse once had a serious relationship, but when he went to New Zealand, he met a woman who deceived him out of all his money. After that, Tse's life began to fall apart. Returning to Hong Kong in 2010, Tse faced despair and attempted suicide 3 times in horrifying ways, burning charcoal, drinking rat poison, and even swallowing mercury. But his sister discovered him in time and saved his life. Although he was saved, Tse was no longer himself. He suffered brain damage, memory loss, and decreased ability to process information. His mind became unstable, easily influenced, and a sense of confusion consumed his spirit. 2 lives marked by trauma and disappointment met, forming a toxic bond. Dark, negative thoughts slowly consumed them. In Qiao's confession, he claimed that his parents had destroyed his life from the beginning, imposing ambitions on him that he never wanted. In Tse, he found someone who shared his feelings, a psychologically unstable person willing to join him in anything. With a meticulously prepared plan, Qiao Kai Leong invited his parents to visit his new apartment, which was actually his accomplice Tse Chin Kei's apartment. Mr. and Mrs. Qiao believed it to be a simple house visit and suspected nothing. When they entered the apartment, they were still cheerful, chatting, but as the door closed, the atmosphere quickly changed. Behind the door, a heavy hammer had been prepared. In a moment they never anticipated, Qiao Kai Leong and Tse Chin Kei attacked. The hammer struck down on Mr. and Mrs. Qiao. Blow after brutal blow. They only managed to raise their hands in absolute horror, but quickly succumbed to the fatal injuries. Kai Leong carried out the attack directly, while Chin Kei played the role of an assistant. The attack happened quickly, leaving no chance for either victim to scream for help. With no resistance left, the apartment was silent, and the metallic smell of blood filled the air. After Qiao Kai Leong's confession, the police immediately arrested Tse Chin Kei based on his testimony. They searched his residence at 38 Phuc Chok, Tai Kok Tsui, and what they found there exceeded all imagination. In Tse Chin Kei's apartment, police were stunned by the horrific scene, with blood stains splattered from the doorway and smeared throughout. In 2 refrigerators in the kitchen, they found dismembered body parts and the preserved organs of Mr. and Mrs. Qiao, which had been salted to prevent decomposition. Further chilling details emerged as police searched the bedroom. On the bed, a large kitchen knife lay next to a blood-stained wooden cutting board, the tools that Tse Chin Kei and Kai Leong had used to dismember the victims. Police found even more, numerous plastic containers filled with char siu roast pork scattered in the fridge and on the table. Perhaps many would wonder why there were so many containers of char siu. But when they pieced the body parts together, some were missing. You understand what I mean, don't you? Certainly, we are all horrified. Initially, the killers planned to use 2 refrigerators to store the bodies, but space was insufficient. So Qiao and Tse Chin Kei chose to deal with the remainder by turning parts of the bodies into grotesque containers of char siu, and some of the meat even showed signs of having been eaten. Not stopping there, the police found a notebook filled with disturbing notes. This notebook revealed that since 2012, Kai Leong and Tse Chin Kei had been planning to carry out murders. The chilling notes detailed methods for hiding and disposing of victims, showcasing both of their twisted obsessions and distorted mental states. The apartment at 38 Phuc Chok, once an ordinary place, had transformed into one of the most horrifying crime scenes, with every corner stained by unimaginable cruelty. Police realized this was not just a simple murder case, but the peak of a brutal plan carried out by individuals who had lost all humanity. On March 15, Hong Kong police officially arrested Chow Kai Leong and his accomplice, Sei Chun Kei, following thorough investigations and chilling confessions. This horrifying case quickly became the focal point of media and public attention, shocking the entire city of Hong Kong. At a subsequent press conference, the Hong Kong police representative, standing before a sea of cameras, confirmed the two suspects plotted together, lured and killed the victims on March 1st. They both attacked the victims in a brutal manner, and according to Chow's confession, Sei Chun Kei was responsible for dismembering the bodies. The trial was promptly organized, attracting widespread public attention. Every detail of the murder plot, dismemberment, and the gruesome acts of the two defendants turned the trial into an intense and haunting experience. Here, Chow Kai Leong showed no remorse but calmly recounted his crimes with a detached demeanor. Chow admitted that he and Sei Chun Kei meticulously planned, prepared tools, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. With a cold tone, he described the killing process, claiming that it was a release for him from the pressures his parents had imposed on him all his life. Sei Chun Kei, Chow's accomplice, in a weakened state and with an unstable mind, confirmed Chow's testimony. He admitted to participating, but emphasized that he had only followed Chow's plan, who orchestrated and led all the actions. When the evidence was presented, the courtroom fell into an eerie silence. Crime scene photos showing the dismembered bodies, char siu containers holding parts of the victims, and the tools used for the crime were displayed as clear evidence of the horrific act. The prosecutor presented a strong case, accusing Chow and Sei Chun Kei of being dangerous individuals with a murder plan devoid of conscience or family bonds. Prosecutors argued that this brutal crime was unforgivable and demanded the highest sentence to protect societal safety. Finally, after many days of trial, the court announced Chow Kai Leong is sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. He is an extremely dangerous individual, a skilled actor capable of lying without blinking, showing no sign of remorse whatsoever. As for Sei Chun Kei, the court recognized him as an accomplice who was psychologically manipulated, with diminished memory and cognitive abilities. Thus, Sei Chun Kei was sentenced to only 1 year in prison. The trial concluded in a heavy atmosphere, serving as a cautionary tale for society about the cruelty that can lurk within seemingly ordinary people. When Chow was led away, his face showed no fear or remorse, but only a faint smile. It was the smile of a man who had freed himself. Someone who no longer cared about conscience or the responsibilities of the life that had nurtured him. This haunting trial left an indelible scar in the hearts of Hong Kong's people, and the case of Chow Kai Leong will forever remain a symbol of the corruption and decay of the human soul. This concludes the video. Thank you for following this thrilling story. If you found this video captivating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any other intriguing crime stories. See you in the next video.